Okay, and we are back after a short break. We have a very small delay, but we wouldn't shorten any session. Okay, and I am together with Martin Stefanko, who is principal software engineer at Red Hat. And Martin today will tell us how looks a day in the life of Quarkus developer. And as always, at the end we'll make a short Q&A session. So if you will have any ideas for question to the Martin, so please write them on the chat and don't wait until the end of this session. So Martin, the stage is yours. Let's begin a show.
Thank you very much. So, hello everyone. As mentioned, my name is Martin Stefanko. I work at Red Hat. Actually, if you want to find me on the internet, everywhere I am under Stefank. I am also writing a book about Quarkus, which I'm going to show you today. So, if you will like what I'm showing you today, probably this is a good start to Quarkus from really nothing knowing about Quarkus to a production system. So, I will show this slide at the end too. And with that, because this is a truly slideless session, you see this is also a terminal. I will open a new terminal and we can start coding. I will make it a little bit bigger for you. So the first thing that we are doing with Quarkus,
maybe you can make a little bit bigger. That's
a little
right.
bit bigger. Okay. So the first thing that you are doing when you are starting with Quarkus, you probably go to quarkus.io, where you will see everything that you need, like from documentation to like various explanation. But there is a really nice button, Start Coding, which will take you to code.quarkus.io, where you can generate basically the application. What I want to show you here is basically just the vast ecosystem that Quarkus comes bundled with. Because in Quarkus, you are basically creating, or Quarkus is a framework which is targeting microservices and serverless applications. So basically, you have this concept of extensions, which you can see down at the down of the screen, which are pluggable pieces of integration code of various libraries that you can pick and choose to include in your different Quarkus applications. I just want to show you that this list is extremely, because I have here a button, is extremely big. You can see that there is a really big bunch of them that you can pick and choose to try different functionalities. But because I prefer terminal and don't like to click, I will show you how to create a application with basically a CLI tool called Quarkus, which you can install. Which is basically only a wrapper around that clickable interface, but I don't need to basically click anything. So I will just pass it some package name of the my application that I'm going to generate, and this -x is the list of extensions that I want to include inside my application. So here I am including REST Easy Reactive JSON, which is a JAX-RS server with JSON support, and SmallRye Open API, which is going to generate open API documents. With this, after a minute, because this needs to call and download stuff from the internet, I should get my application created. And this is taking quite longer than I would expect it in Avenger service, and I can open it in IDEA, and we can start coding. So out of the box, you will get a really simple project generated. You will also see here that I got this code start generated here, which is basically some sample code. Individual extensions may pick and choose to include some sample code when you are creating them. So inside with this code start for REST Easy Reactive, I got this simple hello endpoint, which is just returning hello from REST Easy Reactive. Single-handedly, the best feature that Quarkus comes with is this already mentioned Quarkus dev mode. So with Quarkus dev, I can actually run continuous run of my application. Just to mention, this is no magic. This is actually in the background going to call Quarkus dev, which is a Maven plugin, which is automatically bundled when you generate the application somewhere here, Quarkus Maven plugin. So it's not magic. Just if you use this Quarkus CLI, then it doesn't really matter if you have Maven or Gradle project. It will automatically translate to a correct command, either Gradle task or Maven plugin, depending on which project you are using. And because there was a release of Quarkus yesterday or 2 days ago, I need to download a bunch of stuff, but at least it will show a really nice functionalities. So now I'm using the latest and greatest Quarkus 3.6.1, which was released this week. And I have basically now already started my dev mode. So here inside the dev mode, you already can see that I have live code activated. So what does this mean? I have now on my localhost /hello running my application. So my hello endpoint, where is it? My hello endpoint is returning hello from REST easy reactive. What this continuous reload of your application is that basically that I can change this Java conf, dynamically just save the file. And if I now repeat the call, you will see that my Quarkus application is automatically recompiled and restarted, and I get my changes directly away. So if I change it again, I will get these changes, really fast in a few hundred milliseconds just by this HTTP trigger, which you can also imagine that you are just refreshing your UI inside the browser. Okay, so this is really the basics of what this dev mode is. Basically, you get the idea. You will see throughout the session that this works for a bunch of stuff, also for configuration, POM XML changes, HTML, like some third-party things that you are using, which are not directly code related, for a bunch of stuff. So we will see throughout the session. Basically, inside here, inside this dev mode, you have a bunch of commands that you can run down here. The one that is very useful is H, which will give you basically a list of commands that you can run inside this continuous run. Continuous testing, we will skip for now. Exceptions too. We will start with this system. Because this live reload of your application is dependent on this HTTP trigger, there is also this S that you can press inside the terminal that will force basically the live reload manually inside the terminal, so I can restart the application how many times I want manually. This is particularly useful when you are using something which is not utilizing HTTP, as for instance asynchronous messaging like Kafka, RabbitMQ, and similar. Then basically, if you don't have an HTTP trigger, the asynchronous message will not trigger the live reload. So you need to, when you are doing changes, trigger that reload manually. But typically, this is not that often a case. Also, yeah, we can edit the command line parameters, but because basically Quarkus will give you with this extensions framework, every extension that you will add into your project, and I can probably mention that extension is nothing fancy. It's just a Maven dependency. So you can see here REST easy reactive JSON and small open API. Just is an basically guarantee from Quarkus that this integration of the particular library works with Quarkus. And also you will get a bunch of benefits, like, for instance, easy or like really straightforward native compilation. So every extension, or if your Quarkus application only use Quarkus extensions, then you can just compile your application with the native profile, which we can also find somewhere here, native profile, and you have guaranteed that you will build working GraalVM or similar technologies native executable. It also can do the really nice feature of Quarkus, which allows basically any form of processing that is able to execute at build time. So when you are building your application, maybe on package, and not at runtime, so extension can basically pick and choose which functionality can be executed at build time, and then we don't need to execute it every time that you start your application. So this is why we prefer to use extensions. And also, if you are interested in writing your own extension, just reach out to the community and we can help you with integrating your particular library into Quarkus. This is why many people also started using Quarkus, because you are still writing Java, to write command line applications. And this is why we have these edit command line parameters here, because sometimes you will run into use case when you are really developing command line application, so not a microservice or serverless with Quarkus. So this is useful, but we are not going to do this today because we don't have time. But what I want to show you is this I. So instrumentation-based reload. if I go back into my endpoint and imagine that I would like to track some state here, so I will do atomic integer counter, new atomic integer, and I would just like to print here counting plus counter increment and get. So now every time that I will call my hello endpoint, I will get my counter incremented. Sorry, but what will happen if I now change this method? I will just make it fast. And it's A because it's pronounced Java. So if I now change my application and I force the reload or restart of my application, of course, I will lose my state and I need to create it again. If I press that I here to toggle instrumentation-based reload, so I press I, you will see that basically if I will stick or do my changes in a scope that is able to be transformed to a bytecode which can be dynamically replaced in a class, which basically translates to if you change the code only inside methods, like I did here, you will see that I don't need to really restart the whole application and that my application restart was not required and I was only able to replace classes via instrumentation. So I am not losing the state. If I change it again to something, you will see that the state is still not being closed. Of course, if I change it to something, let's start at 10, outside the scope of a method, I will still not need to lose the counter. Okay, so now I thought that I will need to do this, but let me try to change the name of the method to counter2. This should be already required. No. Okay, I'm surprised because I thought that this was already going to force. So I'm not able to trigger this. That's strange to me. Okay. Okay. Oh my God. Yes, I lost the scope and I just forgot that I changed the value to 10. Sorry, live coding demos. So let's change it to something that I will notice inside the terminal. And yes, now I see that the whole restart of the application is happening. I'm just lost myself because it was showing 11, which was correct, and I was not noticing it. But if I again change something inside the method, I should get 44 because the full restart was not needed. So this instrumentation-based reload is a really helpful feature if you have a bigger, more stateful applications. Live reload, I don't know why you would disable it. Really useful feature is this J, which you can dynamically just transfer between info debug and trace level of your logging, which is very helpful when you are debugging something. And basically, this would be more or less in a really fast fashion, everything that I want to mention for the pure dev mode. One more thing, because this Quarkus also comes with this Quarkus extension list, where I can list the individual extensions that I have installed in my application. If I press here -I, you will get the list of all the extensions. So you still don't need to go into the UI. You can really nicely work from a terminal if you prefer that. And you can see here that you can also add an extension with Quarkus extension add. So I will just copy paste this and I will add a random extension, small I held, which will expose some functionality just to show you that I know that I don't have Quarkus small I held 3.6.1 downloaded. So this still doesn't break my dev mode. You see that the extension is dynamically downloaded and my dev mode still runs. And now I should see small I held here and on http 8080/q/health, I now get the functionality. If I will just make it faster because will be Quarkus extension remove. If I remove this extension, and again, just to reiterate, this will only add an extension into my POM XML. So if I remove it, hopefully the remove command is correct, you see that it's again removed. Now you won't find it here, and I lost that functionality because I removed the extension. So you see that dev mode can survive a lot of stuff out of the box. Of course, there are some edge cases, but if I need to stop it like once or twice per day, that's probably too much. Once I ran it for, I think, like a week or so, and I didn't even notice. Okay, moving on. Continuous testing. Just by pressing R inside this terminal, if I now press R, you will see that the Quarkus will start executing my test. And of course, my test now fails because I changed the return value of my hello endpoint, which I am actually testing. So I need to fix that. So I will copy paste the correct message and go into the test, which was also generated and is testing my hello endpoint, and I will fix it. And I will not fix it yet because I want to show you the magic live. So I will move this terminal here so you will see what actually happens. So if I now just fix this test and I will save this file, just Control S, you will see that the test is automatically rerun, and I see that now everything is working. So I can, you see, dynamically work with my application, and just by saving the file, I am continuously rerunning the tests which are relevant to my code. I will get to it in the background. So typically, my use case is that I have IDE on one monitor, dev mode on the other, and until there is like mostly white and green, I'm not checking it. If I see something red, I know that I broke something and I need to go back and fix it. So again, if I just go back and save the file and scroll down, you see that the test was rerun and everything is green. Also, the question that I often get is, will this rerun all of my tests? Not really. Actually, here, now we get a new options. You can only rerun failed tests with F, and you can also trigger this broken only mode, which will be only rerunning tests that failed. But even for the successful cases, it will not run everything. Quarkus will actually try to link the individual tests to individual code that the test is actually testing, and it will try to only run a subset of tests relevant to your changes. So if I would now copy paste this to greeting resource 2, let's put it on hello 2, doing the same thing, and I will copy paste the test to greeting resource 2 test, testing hello 2. Now you see that I have 2 tests running, and if I changed only this test 1, you see that it only ran 1 test. If I fix that 1 test, okay, only 1 test was run. So it can deduct that I'm changing only greeting resource and not greeting resource 2. So it only will rerun 1 test. If I press R, it will run all the tests together. One useful feature that I also utilize from time to time, because maybe, and you didn't notice this, if I press O inside this terminal, it will trigger the test output. So if I now rerun the test, we will see actually the output of the test, and you will see that this Quarkus test will actually run a new instance of my application because my dev mode ran on port 8080. So it will actually start a new instance of my application on 8081, and it run tests against that. But if you are just writing this style of integration tests, which are not really, like they don't have any side effects, then sometimes for development purposes, I will put this Quarkus test away just to show you that now if I rerun my test, they rerun in a few milliseconds. So it's really fast because they are just calling my dev mode on 8080. So of course, like 200 milliseconds, which is without this 200 milliseconds, is not that much, but when you have more tests, this can be very useful. Okay, so let's move the terminal back because hopefully you get the idea how cool this feature is. And let's move back. Oh, so come on. Rerun test. Yeah, now I fixed it. Because of switching of terminal modes, sometimes I need to do some magic. Okay, so we would get basically the idea. I will just disable the test output so it will not interfere with what I will be showing next. With this W, I can open, and you see that on workspace 18, it opened the default application that will be basically that will open on my localhost 8080, which is not that interesting because it's also something that was generated by Quarkus. But the interesting part is this D, which will open the dev UI. So if I press D, now I get a new page open on localhost 8080/q/dev/UI. And here, basically, you have user interface, which is providing basically any form of insight into your Quarkus application that you can imagine, because any extension that you can see here can add any form of basically functionality or insight of what it is doing to this UI as they please. So if you have any idea what would be useful, just create an issue in Quarkus and we can add it. For instance, this ARC, which is CDI implementation, context and dependency injection implementation in Quarkus, comes with the list of beans that are inside my application. So we can, for instance, see my greeting resource and greeting resource 2 because JAX-RS resources are automatically CDI beans. And also you can find this graph, which it will not show you here, but I will try to find something which is more config producer. If you have something which is like more complex CDI bean, which is actually using some CDI beans, you can get this really nice graph to show you like what is injected where, which is very useful. Also, if I go inside my application and I will go into greeting resource test, just know that this is greeting resource test, and I will just click in the UI on greeting resource, you will see that my ID, that the dev UI found that I'm using IntelliJ IDEA, and it will actually try and open greeting resource for me inside my IDEA, which is very useful also. Okay, so as I mentioned, this any kind of extension can add any form of functionality that they would like to add. Also, this ARC, for instance, has these remote components. So as I mentioned, Quarkus is trying to do as much work as possible at build time. So you have this list of removed components, which is 64 classes, which are only used for some initialization, or they are not even used at all. And because this ARC is processing all dependency graph or dependency information and build time, it can find out that these 64 classes are not needed at runtime. So they are never included in your executable jar or your final package application. So this means that this is 64 classes which you will never need to load. So you have a faster startup of your application. You have also consuming less memory. And of course, the more complex application, the bigger savings you will get from this ahead of time compilation. Just to show you, because we don't really have time to go through everything, you have like endpoint scores for JAX-RS, exception mappers. But for instance, this small Open API, I can open the Open API which was generated directly inside my dev UI. I can also open this Swagger UI, which is basically also being packaged by that Open API extension. So I can directly try and play with my application. So you see this form of basically functionality which is included here is very variable. For instance, GraphQL extension comes with GraphQL. I don't know, gRPC has also some like clickable interface that you can use to get into it. Health extension also comes with the graphical interface. So really endless possibilities that you can do with this extension framework. But moving on, we have configuration here. So I didn't mention, but Quarkus utilizes microprofile config for his configuration, also for configuration of Quarkus and the configuration of your custom configuration properties, which always lives in resources application properties. So I have nothing here yet. If I go into my configuration inside this dev UI, this is very useful because it will actually accumulate all configuration that I am currently able to configure in my current Quarkus application, depending on what kind of extensions I have included in my application. So this will dynamically change to add properties that are configurable for particular extensions. So I can, for instance, search here for darken, which will darken my console. And if I change this to 1 and click this save button, you will see that property darken was updated. If I go into my dev mode, you will see that the property actually took effect because configuration changes, as I mentioned, also trigger your dev mode reload. So you see that I have now darkened console, and inside my application properties, I have this property edit. So if I change it back to 0, save this file, now it will not do this automatically because I just changed it in IDEA. But if I restart it manually with S inside the terminal, you see that this will take effect. Also, if I would restart it with HTTP. So configuration from here take effect, but from like manual changes in IDEA, it will not, but it's not such a big issue. Also, please take care that be careful that when you are using these properties, some of them are only relevant to build time. And I think here I can list the build properties, but I don't see it, which are only relevant to build time, which means that basically in dev mode, it doesn't really matter because my build time and runtime are included inside one run of the application. But if the property is relevant only to build time, you need to specify it when you are packaging your application, not when you are running it. For any not only build time specific, you can override them at runtime as you please. You can imagine, like, for instance, HTTP port on which my application runs is build time property because you cannot change the port dynamically when you are running the application.
Martin,
Speaking of endpoints,
small info for you, we are slightly running out of time.
Okay, so we are already running out of the time. That was a very short session. So if I have 1 minute to close out, then basically I just want to show you that you have this continuous testing also inside the terminal. You can also open the dev mode directly in dev UI. And it's a shame that I didn't have time to show you dev services, but basically this is one feature that if I would add basically any extension that is, like, for instance, a database, which is Postgres, which I'm adding here, you will see that basically Quarkus sees that I want to connect to a Postgres database, but I didn't configure any connection to a database. So it will start a new container. So I will see, sorry, because a new Postgres container was started for me here. And if I press C, I can see that a new dev service with this Postgres container was started for me, and Quarkus automatically injected connection information for the database. So even if I don't do anything, I am already connected to a Postgres database, and I can start developing my application against a real database. And with that, I will finish because we are out of time. I will show you more stuff that you can do with dev services, but sometime later. So if you like what Quarkus can do, please check out this book that we are writing with Jan Martiška called Quarkus in Action, where you will get basically the idea of all this dev goodness that you will get from Quarkus, plus a really list of extensions and how to integrate them with your application to create a full microservices application by the end. Also, one last thing, if you would use this code that you can see here, you can get 35% of everything at Manning. And with that, thank you for your attention, and hopefully you like what you saw.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Thank you very much, Martin, for your amazing presentation. I will look at the chat if we have any question for Q&A session, and I don't see any questions, so maybe we'll give half of a minute for the rest to post a question, but I don't see anything more. So once again, thank you very much, Martin, for your lecture, and thank you very much for all of you for participating in this session. And as always, please remember to rate Martin's presentation using the stars under the video player. So thank you very much, and see you soon on the next session.
Bye.